We'll start the session. So today's topic is term sheet. I'm really sorry, like last week, we couldn't have the session. I was a bit unwell, so I was not able to take the session. So I'll share my screen. So yeah, you guys can see my screen.
Yeah. But it's not in the presentation. Yeah.
Okay. So today's topic is actually understanding term sheets. So since term sheet is a bit, elaborated topic, like to discuss about the various terms and discuss about the various clauses that we typically have in the term sheet. Uh, it ideally won't be possible to do all of this in say 30-45 minutes. So I've thought about like making this as a two-part series, and the part one is kind of the fundamentals, wherein I'll be touching upon like what is a term sheet, what are the major components of the term sheet, then like a few important clauses that comes in a term sheet. And in the second session, the second part, we'll be digging more deeper into these terminologies. So that will be more of a kind of a legal deep dive kind of thing. For that legal deep dive to happen, you should understand what is a term sheet and all those things. So what we'll cover today, firstly, what is a term sheet, defining this critical fundraising document, when and how term sheets are used. So like at what timeline does a term sheet come in and all those things. Then key clauses overview. So what are the key clauses that we have in a term sheet? Then the purpose and importance, why it's essential for both founders and investors to have a term sheet. Major components, like what are the kind of major components of the term sheet, like what all things typically we mention in a term sheet. Apart from the clauses, what all things do we mention? Then a preview of part two, like what to expect in our next session. Okay. So yeah, jumping straight into the topic. So what is a term sheet? It's a non-binding blueprint. So when I say non-binding, it can be terminated by either party. So typically people relate term sheet as a success to fundraising. So term sheet is actually a starting to your actual fundraising journey. So a term sheet means that an investor is interested in your business and they have agreed upon few terms with you. But after that, they need to do few review and everything. So it's a non-binding blue agreement. When I say non-binding, either you can terminate the agreement or an investor can terminate the agreement. That doesn't mean that since you have a term sheet, that doesn't mean that you have the assurance of a fund coming in. And it's a blueprint. So it outlines like kind of how this fundraising round is going to be. What is the dilution that you're going to offer? What is the valuation of your company? Like complete details, like how this structure is going to be transacted. This would be mentioned in this term sheet. So it's a preliminary non-binding agreement outlining the key terms and conditions of a potential investment. It serves as a foundational document for both parties. So when I say both parties, it is the founder and the investor. Okay. It is a roadmap for final legal docs. So once you have a term sheet, or once you have a fundraising round, typically when does the fundraising round close? That closes when the money is credited in your bank account. Okay. So prior to that, there are a lot of agreements to be signed by the investors and the founders, which typically includes shareholders agreement. It can be share subscription agreement, share purchase agreement, whatever it may be. So we typically use the term definitive document for such things, which actually is a very elaborated legally vetted, like kind of complicated document. So the term sheet is actually a miniature version of your SHA or SSA or SPA, whatever you're going to have. And it sets the tone and it sets like what you can expect in the SHA, or what all are the major conditions going to be in the SHA. Okay. And for lawyers and professionals like us, chartered accountants, term sheet helps us in defining how this deal is going to work. For lawyers to prepare the SHA and all those things, they need the term sheet because conditions are mentioned there. For us, to go ahead with the filing and the compliance related things, we need to understand all these things from the term sheet. So it's very critical for your legal counsel or your chartered accountant or whoever is working with you. So it guides lawyers when drafting definitive agreements and aligns both sides before incurring heavy legal fees. This efficiency is crucial in startup financing. Then hybrid binding clauses. Certain sections, confidentiality, no-shop fees, may be binding even though most of the sheet is not. This ensure integrity and commitment during negotiation. Even though I have told like if it's a non-binding agreement, there are few clauses which will be binding in nature. For example, the confidentiality kind of thing. Then the no-shop. No-shop means like if you taking this term sheet to another investor and bargaining a better deal there. Then some cancellation fee or something which is already agreed upon. Those things will still have relevance in the term sheet. So it's actually binding in nature. Okay. So it's a non-binding blueprint. It's a roadmap for your final legal docs, and it has hybrid binding clauses. Then why term sheets matter? Okay. So I've mentioned like 3 points why term sheets matter. So first is align expectations. So when I say align expectations, so a fundraising round is depending a lot on negotiations. Like there is a lot of back and forth because as a founder, you may be expecting so much amount of valuation, but the investor would be able to give you at this valuation only. So there are things like that. There will be like the investor wants a board seat, but you are not ready to offer. So there are expectations from your side. There are expectations from the investor's side. So you have all this discussion, and the investor and you finally align at a middle ground. Those things are documented in a term sheet. So this actually forms an integral part of your how the company is going to function after the investor puts in money. So so the term sheet actually help you to align both the expectations. So it's an early agreement on valuation, ownership, and investor rights prevents misunderstandings later, fostering trust and a smoother process. So your valuation is locked now. The percentage of dilution is locked now. The type of instrument is locked. So like future rift and future confusions will be avoided. So both of the parties align to something on a middle ground. Then the next one is clarify economics. When I say economics, it's always related to money. So sets out pricing terms such as pre-money valuation, investment amount, option pool, ESOP, and defining the financial framework of the deal. Like what sort of instrument are you going to bring at, what date you are going to close the deal. All those things would come under these things. So it's basically like the numbers revolving around the particular fundraising journey. What is your pre-money valuation? What is the investment amount? What is the post-money valuation? Or how much is your ESOP pool? And all those things. Okay. The next thing is protect both sides. So there would be things wherein you would be actually as a founder requiring protection on the things which the investor has agreed, and also similarly the investor would also need some sort of protection from certain clauses. For example, the confidentiality part, what I told. So for example, you have a term sheet and you send out all your deck, you send out your MIS and everything. And if the investor uses it for another client of theirs, another portfolio company of theirs, so that's going to be a violation. So to protect your interest, you need to have a term sheet or an agreement in place. Similarly, from the investor side also, you misuse some sort of thing, like the no-shop thing kind of thing, which I told earlier. So you are using this term sheet to counter negotiate with another investor. So that's not actually what it is intended to do. So the investor also need to have protection from such things. So the term sheet actually helps in protecting both sides in that aspect. So firstly, it's aligning with expectations and clarifying the economics and protecting both sides. Then this is a typical question what I have. So people ask why to have a term sheet? Why don't we have an MOU or a letter of interest kind of thing? So this slide I have just prepared just to bifurcate what is the difference between a term sheet and an MOU or an LOI, so that you guys have clarity on what are the main differences. So primarily it's the purpose. Again, term sheet, like I've told, it's a detailed roadmap for final agreement specifying key deal terms. Whereas MOU or LOA, it's a broad expression of intent. Like it's just okay, I'm interested in putting money. It's nothing beyond that. I mean, the terms are not that clear. You haven't negotiated much on the terms and all those things. Okay. Then specificity, like it's highly specific term sheet. Like you'll be having the pricing, you'll be having the rights for the investors, shareholders, and everyone. The timelines would be specific, and there will be certain other specific clauses also. Whereas in MOU, it's low comparatively. Specificity is low because it's a general goal, like kind of general interest and a preliminary understanding. Nothing much beyond that. Then binding clauses, it's selective. Like for example, in term sheet, what I've told, confidentiality, no show, expense reimbursement, etc., are binding. But in letter of interest or MOU, it's just not generally non-binding. It's just like kind of a document to show that we have interest. Nothing beyond that. There is no particular clauses mentioned that after this you will not back off or expensive. You cannot do such things with a letter of interest. Okay. Then usage, it's used in VC and PE deals, mergers, acquisition, and priced equity rounds. Whereas MOU or LOI is used in early discussions in various transactions, partnerships, or collaborations. Okay. Then when are term sheets used? So term sheets are actually used for a fundraising round. Typically, mostly seen around from Series A and beyond, but typically, like nowadays, we've seen most of the startups having term sheet in the seed round also. Even pre-seed round also I've seen term sheet. It's more of a kind of aligning with the terms and everything. And, like kind of the fundraising takes a bit of time. So for the founder and the investors to be aligned to something and to like kind of have a clarity on the transaction and all those things, typically people have started entering into a term sheet of late. Like I've seen more number of term sheets these days. Okay. So typically it comes in seed rounds, like sometimes you especially for larger and seed investment or when convertible notes convert to equity, at those time it can be used. Then Series A, Series B, Series C. Then in case of a merger and acquisition or a private equity investment, the term sheets are used. But I mean, like I've told, like in every fundraising deal nowadays, term sheet is coming into picture. There is no hard and fast rule that you should be using term sheet only in Series A round or anything. There is nothing like that. You can even you can use a term sheet for your friends and family round also. There is nothing wrong in that. But typically people don't do such things because you have an agreed terms. You are once the fund come in and you do the ROC filing, again the terms are again locked with the ROC as well. So the timeline between term sheet to closure is typically lower in friends and family round or the earlier rounds. That's why typically people don't go for a term sheet. So term sheet is like kind of what I would say. I mean, taking it on a funny note, like it's like kind of the engagement and marriage. So a term sheet is kind of an engagement and marriage is kind of the actual deal happening. So I mean, in most areas of the country, like we have the engagement only if the marriage is getting delayed. Like they have a proper engagement kind of thing because they need an assurance kind of thing, and they know that the marriage is going to take a bit of time. So similarly, like kind of term sheet comes into place, like kind of wherein, okay, now we are agreeing to these terms. Now I'll have a due diligence. Now let my CA team come and evaluate your books. Let me have reliance on your numbers and all those things. And after that only we are going to give you the final check. So since there is a gap between that, people typically go for a term sheet. Then components, pricing terms. Firstly, like I've told, pre-money versus post-money valuation. So pre-money valuation, like I'm told, it's the value of the company before the investment, and post-money valuation is the value of the company after the investment. So in the term sheet, you will have to mention the pre-money valuation. And obviously, you will be mentioning the investment amount, which is the second point here. So once you have the pre-money and investment, obviously the post-money value is automatically derived there. It's nothing but pre-money valuation plus investment amount. So investment amount is the capital amount that the investor is going to bring into your company. Then based on this, we decide the dilution also, like what percentage the investor is going to get. Then the option pool size, like typically there is an ESOP, employee stock option pool created. So those things are typically mentioned in the term sheet because if you look from an investor angle, when you're raising more funds and when you're raising in next round, typically the investor who has come in the current round, they also have a dilution because you're giving 10% of the company to another new investor. Just imagine that 10% you are giving. as an ESOP pool. In that case, the investor is not that interested to give that 10% buy because there is no value hike or anything happening. But when it's a new investor coming in, even though he's giving 10%, the price at which the current investor has put in may have gone 2x when the next investor has come in. So there is a value appreciation. So it's very critical that you create your ESOP pool upfront because investors would negotiate on that. If you don't have a ESOP pool and after you give like kind of 30% equity to the investors and you go and tell them now you want to create 10% ESOP pool, I don't think they will be agreeing to it because that's like kind of I don't think that's going to work. So you should be having an option pool size and everything fixed upfront. Then the ownership structure reflects like kind of how shares are allocated. Like we'll be having the pre-investment cap table, like who all are the shareholders, what is the number of shares that they are holding, and what is the percentage of ownership that they are going to have. And after the investment, how it is going to be. So the ownership structure before and after will be an important part of the components of term sheet. Then we have the economic rights. So economic rights define how investors share in the financial upside and downside. So if you get an exit, like somebody coming and acquiring you, or like if you going an IPO, or like if the company, that is the both of these scenarios are upside. Downside is like if company winding up, like they don't have money to operate or the business is not working, so they have decided to wind down. So that's a downside. So the investors typically keep these economic rights to maintain like kind of their control and like kind of ensure that their money is protected. So these rights are called economic rights. Okay, these provisions ensures investors are protected if the company is sold or raises capital under unfavorable terms. Okay, so the first one is liquidation preference. So investors get their invested capital back first on exit, sale, IPO before common shareholders. This offers downside protection. I mean, for example, if an investor invests say 1 crore rupees in your company, and eventually your company is being sold for 1.2 crore. Okay, but the 1 crore worth investor would be holding only 10% in your company. So ideally, if you were to divide the proceeds of 1.2 crore, 90% would go to the founder, 1.08 crore, and 10% of 12 lakh will only go to the investors. But if you have a liquidation preference by the investor, the first 1 crore will go to the investor. Then the remaining 20 lakh would be divided in the ratio of 90:10. So that is what is called liquidation preference. So the investor gets settled first, and then only the founders get settled. Okay. Then we have the pro rata or preemptive rights. Allow investors to maintain their ownership percentage by investing in future running rounds, preventing dilution. I'll explain this in the next slide. Then we have anti-dilution protection. Again, like when there is going to be a down round, when we say down round, for example, you raised funds at 30 crore now, but for the current circumstance, after 6 months, the business is down, you're doing a pivot, you are forced to raise funds at 15 crore valuation. So that is called a down round. So in that scenario, how an investor gets his protection, because see, if an investor who has put in like enough 10 crore at 30 crore valuation is getting 33.33%. But had the valuation be 15%, he would have got 66.67. So he should be protected for that. So that's where anti-dilution protection comes in. I'll be explaining that also in detail. Then the other provisions of term sheet. One is the information right, like the granting investors regular access to financial statements and timely MIS kind of things and all those things. And there will be typically reserved matters wherein you need to get prior approval from the investor for certain selected matters. Then confidentiality and no-show. These clauses, so if you got sensitive business information, will prevent the company from soliciting or entertaining competing acquisition offers, ensuring focus on the current deal. Like I've told already earlier, the investor cannot misuse your confidential information, your MIS or PISTEC. And similarly, you should not be using the term sheet that the investor has given you. Then closing conditions, these are prerequisites that must be met before a transaction can be finalized, commonly including successful DD completion and the securing of necessary regulatory approvals. So there will be conditions mentioned. Only after these conditions are fulfilled, the deal will be proceeded. Okay. So typically, like there will be a DD which is mentioned by the investor, which wherein your books will be reviewed by a chartered accountant or a consultant or someone. Then you need to get a lot of regulatory approval. You need to enhance your authorized capital in some cases. You need to get board approvals. You need to like kind of get valuation report, all those things comes under the regulatory approvals. Then again, like I've told the key clauses overview, understanding these foundational, like we'll go one by one in detail. I just mentioned in here. Okay, so liquidation preference, like I've told, this clause dictates the priority and multiple of investor payout in the event of a company or liquidation. So information rights is essentially nothing but like kind of the investor has access to your financial data. You should be sending them the audited FS. You should be sending them the periodic MIS, and whatever is happening in the company, you should be updating them on a periodic basis. And there will be few certain clauses which they typically keep as reserved matters, wherein for all those things, only with the consent of the investor, you will be able to proceed. So that's the information right. Okay. Then preemptive and pro rata, like I've told, these rights offers investors the option to purchase new shares in future funding notes. I'll discuss one by one this in detail. Okay. Okay, liquidation preference I'll take first. I think I have missed out the slide on the. I mean, I think that's coming more detail in the second part, but still I'll just explain to you. So liquidation preference, like I've told, it's typically 1x what people would be saying. So 1x means that if an investor has put in 1 crore, first he should be repaid with 1 crore, and after whatever comes in, that can be divided in the shareholding ratio. If it is 2x of liquidation preference, the investor would be repaid 2 crore first and remaining in the shareholding ratio. Okay. So preemptive and pro rata rights. Okay. So consider this scenario. Okay. So currently the company is owned by the founders, 100% by the founders. Now a new investor comes in and they have 20% in the company. So it's now 80% for the founders and 20% for the investors. Then the next round happens after 1 year. Okay. This time they are diluting another 10%. So when the 10% dilution happens, what happens is this 10% is diluted both from the investors and founders in the ratio of their holdings. So the investors 80% would become, sorry, the founders 80% would become 72%, investors 10% would become 8%, and the the founders 80% would become 72%, and the investors 20% would become 18%. That is 2% dilution, which is 10% of 2%, and the new investor is going to get 10%. So if you look at this scenario, when every fundraising round happens, the existing investor also dilutes a percentage of their shareholding, like the founders. So in order to, but few investors would be requiring a right wherein they need to maintain their shareholding in the company. Okay, but practically we cannot do anything like kind of only the founders dilute the share. Those things typically can't be done. So that is why we have this thing called preemptive and pro rata rights. So this is where, so if in just imagine the same case, the 20% is going to become 18%. So in that case, what the investor can do is that the existing investor can do is that he can also participate in the same round at the same term and procure X number of shares so that his percentage will still become 20% in the company. You got what I'm telling, no? So that is actually giving a right to the investor to procure the shares earlier or like along with the upcoming investors, so that they don't have a dilution in the percentage that they are holding. And having said that, if they have to get the shares, they will also have to bring the same amount what the other investors are bringing in. Okay, what the new investors are bringing in, they will have to bring in that amount. So that is with preemptive and pro rata. I hope everyone understood that. It's clear, no? Yeah. Okay. So it's basically like kind of you're giving the investor an option to participate in the current round so that they can maintain whatever percentage they are holding. Okay. So again, you see here initial ownership is like enough company and the investor share. Then after that, new investor will also come and there will be a share going from the investor share. See, now it's company equity. The investor got a small share from here. Now when new investor come, it goes here. So to avoid that, they can exercise their preemptive right and get the holding intact. Then next clause is anti-dilution protection. So similar to what I've told, I've told an example earlier. So an investor who typically puts money, I'd say 30 crore valuation, and put in 10 crore in the company, they got 33%. Okay, but for some reason your business went bad, the market is very bad, you pivoted, you are in a position that you cannot survive and you are raising money at 15 crore valuation. So that is where actually an investor is going to have a problem. So for the investor who has put in 10 crore and just got 33.33%, you raising another fundraise in the next 6 months at 15 crore valuation is a like kind of critical thing for them. So have you raised the valuation? Have you raised the funds at 15 crore valuation in the previous round? They would have got 66.67% of your company. That's 2x of your company, what they are having right now. So in order to protect that, we have something called the anti-dilution protection. Okay, so anti-dilution protection. So what happens is like kind of in case of a down round, the investor has an option to like kind of or the investor's shares get adjusted to the current valuation of the company. Okay, so that is what happens in the anti-dilution protection. So anti-dilution clauses are designed to adjust the conversion price of an investor's preferred shares if a subsequent funding round occurs at a lower valuation than the previous one, safeguarding their investment. And typically there are two models of doing an anti-dilution protection. One is the weighted average model and the second one is the full ratio. So in the weighted average model, no, they cannot exit to make profit, Sanjoli. They cannot exit. In down round, people won't make money. So you just imagine like kind of what, like in the down round, if that they have invested 10 crore and they got 33.37% of the company. Okay, suppose there is 33,000 shares. And in the next down round, the valuation is 15 crore. So the new investor who is coming in want to buy the shares from the existing investors. What would they offer for that 33,000 shares? It's 33% of the company, which is 5 crore. They'll offer only 5 crore. So you are going to make a loss of 5 crore if you are an investor. So in down round, investors or nobody is going to make profit. But sometimes down round may be important for a startup. Why? Because having said that the condition of the market and everything is like that, they have to go for a down round and then like kind of raise funds at down round, then rebuild the business all over again, and then like kind of scale it to the next side. Okay. So the first method is weighted average. This method balances the price of new shares against the original investment price. I'm not going deeper into this. It's just like kind of the weighted average calculation, what you do in school and college or whatever. So investment price, adjusting the conversion price proportionally. It's generally considered fairer to founders and represents a common compromise in negotiations. So it's going to be a weighted average between your previous fundraising round and this round, and there will be a defined formula and everything for that. And that's the way it's calculated there. Then in full ratio, it's a more aggressive approach. This clause resets the conversion price of an investor's shares to the lowest price per share at which new equity is issued in a down round. So, for example, if the investor was holding 10 crore and he was holding 33% of the company and he is holding preference share, the conversion terms mentioned anti-dilution protection means that at 15 crore valuation, if he convert the shares, he'll get 66% of the company. That is called a full ratio kind of thing. Okay. So this typically, this significantly protects investors, but can be highly dilutive for founders. So these are the two approaches we typically take for weighted average and full ratio. Okay. Then anti-dilution mechanisms are critical protections that adjust the number of common shares received upon conversion of preferred stock, safeguarding investor value in down rounds. So typically, if you are owning a preference share, the terms of conversion would be set in such a manner that you have the anti-dilution protection set there. Okay. Then, I mean, liquidation preference I've told already. So liquidation preference defines the order and magnitude of payouts to investors on a liquidity event. Then we have like kind of participating and non-participating. So typically it's participating liquidation preference everywhere. Non-participating means the investor gets the money back and they don't get anything extra. So few investors, I mean, they may go for a non-participating 5x kind of thing, which means that either if the company, if the investor invested 10 crore in the company, okay, and the company finally makes 100 crore on selling, this investor will have to get 10 into 5x, 50x, and no share from the remaining portion. So that's a non-participating kind of thing. In the non-participating liquidation preference, you just get what you are guaranteed. Or like, 1x return is the thing you have mentioned, you get 1x. If 5x is mentioned, you get 5x. In the opposite side, participating means that you will be getting the 1x of the liquidation preference. On top of it, whatever is the remaining amount, that you'll be getting the percentage what you're holding in the company based on the percentage of hold. So it's like that. So it's non-participating and participating in the liquidation preference. Then we have tag along and drag along rights. So tag along rights is like kind of it's commonly called as co-sale right also, wherein like kind of if the founders founders are having 80% ownership in the company, okay, and the founders got a good buyer, but they would just want to sell their shares alone, and they're trying to like kind of cheat the investors, okay. So in that case, the investors can exercise their tag along rights. So if the founders are selling their shares, the majority shareholders are selling their shares, the minority shareholders can tag their shares along with the majority shareholders and get that benefit. So with the tag along right coming in, the investors can forcefully sell their shares also along with the founders' shares. Okay. So in that case, you can like kind of keep the thing going. Okay. Then we have drag along rights. So drag along rights is like kind of typically have a majority shareholder to force minority shareholders to participate in the sale of a company. But if that is not beneficial to the investor can always like kind of object to that. And there are cases wherein investors also have drag along rights. For example, in the agreement you mentioned that you are going to give the investor exit in 5 years, and that is not happening, and the investor has a good buyer. If they do that now, they'll get at least 1.5x. They can drag you along and sell the whole shares of the company. So that can also be done. So drag along is somebody like dragging and like selling the shares. Tag along is that somebody is selling, so I will also, just like a magnet, I will go and stand with them and I'll sell off my shares with them. So that is tag along and drag along. So these two rights are typically there in the term sheet and like shareholders agreement and everywhere. So we'll discuss more detail this in part 2. Yeah, so that's it for now. And in the second part, what we will be discussing would be, we'll be digging more deeper into these clauses one by one. I'll make you understand what these clauses actually mean, because it's very important for everyone to understand what these clauses are. Okay, so only if you understand what these clauses are, then only you will be understanding what things you have signed. See, most of the founders typically don't do a legal review of the term sheet or the SHA. They just read it on their own and then they sign the agreement, because the fund coming into the company seems to be a more priority thing for them. But at the time of some sort of unfavorable situation, that is when they read all these clauses and understand that what they have signed and all those things. So it's always better to have clarity on these things. So that's why I thought if I'll take this as a session, and I get a lot of inquiry and I get a lot of work wherein people typically ask me to represent them in front of the investor for the investor negotiation on the terms and all those things, and they typically don't have an idea of what the clauses they have asked for. Yeah, so that's it from my end. You can ask the question. So we have a WhatsApp group, Jargon Buster Webinar Series WhatsApp group. You can join the group to get updates of the upcoming sessions, and in case you want to connect with me on LinkedIn and chat or something, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Now over to you guys. Yeah, Jitesh, you can.
Abhijit, I'm in the very, very early stages. When it comes to these term sheets, right, is it better off that, let's say I'm coming into a situation where I am joining let's say venture studio or an accelerator comes in and I'm getting selected. Will a term sheet be necessary in that condition? Point one. Point two, if it is not a term sheet, right, is there some other legally binding things that I should be careful about?
See, you should be worried about such things. See, typically, the agreements or these things with accelerators and few mentors kind of thing I've seen is that it's mostly one-sided. Like typically, like kind of, for example, you just imagine the success fee on fundraise. Okay, so in few accelerators, I've seen that in every funds that you raise in the future, you have to give them success, not just the funds that you have raised when you were part of their accelerator program or nothing like that. So there will be absurd clauses like this. So it's important, like if you go through all the legal clauses, see, whenever, like, be it any document that you're signing, be it in the business front or be it in the personal front, it's always better to like have a legal opinion and like making clear what's.
So at that point, should I actually recruit a lawyer, or would a chartered accountant be better positioned to look
See,
at it and say,
I would say it in this manner. See, if you go to any general lawyer or general CA, you won't get the solution for this. You should be focusing on a lawyer who focus on the corporate aspect of it.
okay,
Really a corporate lawyer or a chartered accountant who has worked on such transactions and deals before. So that is where they'll be able to help you. So if you go to a general person, like I mean, the if you go to a general criminal lawyer or a civil lawyer,
yeah,
the kind of understanding that they have towards the startup thing might be different. Okay, same is
yeah.
the case with chartered accountants also. So they might be good with audits, they might be good with taxes, but when it comes to startup things and all those things, they may not be that good at it.
Okay, got it. So in this case, you would suggest that I should go with a corporate lawyer and also a chartered accountant who has expertise in this avenue.
Yes.
Two is necessary. So just one last question, I promise. So let's say when I'm in the bootstrap stage or something like that, and it seems like these lawyers and chartered accountants are exorbitantly pricey. Do you think that there is an alternate, or this is like a mandate? You can't escape
I mean,
using
see,
a service.
like what I'm telling is, it's not a mandate thing or anything. So you just think about the criticality of the document that you are signing. So if it is something a plain agreement which you, in your common sense, you are able to read and understand, there is no need to go to a chartered accountant or a lawyer. If you're confident that there is no absurd clause or that anything is going to backfire, you can proceed with that. See, and typically, like why I would say, see, typically we say this to like our client, the cost of non-compliance is much higher than the compliance cost, but nobody realizes that because your compliances are being done on time by your chartered accountant or whoever is doing that. Similarly, like the price you pay them now may feel higher, but just imagine you omitting that amount to save another 50,000 or a lakh, and then you end up in a 2 crore like liability just because of some absurd clause that you have signed in. So that's where you have to take a call. So if it's up to your common sense that you are understanding and everything, you seems that this is okay, you can go ahead with this.
Yeah.
You can go. There is no hard and fast rule that you should be going with them.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Sidesh. Is there anyone else?
Abhijit, I'm sorry. One last question, if that's okay. Yeah. So all of these clauses, right? These are all negotiable, right? It's not like, say, for instance, the liquidation or the drag. All these stuffs we can negotiate and say, okay, say for instance, my company's valuation comes down 15 crores, and then and if you are getting like the vast chunk of it, and as a founder I put in a lot of efforts, I'm getting nothing, pennies out of it. So in this case, is it like a negotiation point where I say like, okay, you know what, if that happens, there's here's how much you will get. You will not get the entire percentage, but you will actually get a slightly better percentage than what I do. Is that a negotiation or set in
I
stone?
mean, see, that can be negotiable, but there are certainly like certain set of things which are typically agreed upon. I mean, generally for like 1x of liquidation preference is a normal thing. You look any SHA term sheet, 1x is normal thing because even you just imagine like see, it's true that the founder has put in a lot of effort and everything, but there is some investor who just has blindly trust the founder and put his 1 crore into the company. So I don't think it's wrong for him to ask the 1 crore first. So first you pay me the 1 crore. Remaining whatever profits we make, we'll share in the shareholding ratio what we are having. So those things, there are few things which are standard set of things, like even drag along, tag along, all those things are like kind of standard things. But if they are asking like kind of some 5x LP liquidation preference, that is somewhere you will have to negotiate, I think.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. So Ram, you can ask your question.
Hi, sir.
Yeah.
Myself is Ram, and sir, I already spoke to you. It's a year ago, I think, in
Okay.
Triple IT Kottayam cohort, in
Uh-huh.
pre-incubation cohort. So, sir, my question is, when it comes to this financial terms, like term sheets, whatever you told, as a early stage founder, for me, it's like bit confusing and also been lot of pressure. So we have built a product, sir. It will be launched in the end of the next month, in the month of April. Have been already pitched to certain investors and a couple of Indian government grants. But apart of grants, investors are pretty much interested to invest, but they're asking some traction and all. When they put certain, I mean, like instruments, types of instruments, and how much you want to dilute, I feel lot of pressure, sir, because in early stage if I take investment, they will be try to push me to get more sales. I feel it uh, will be more pressure I'm feeling. So how should I make sure of term sheets and all in a right way? So could you please suggest in that?
I mean, see, again, that's a different call, I would say, Ram. See, if you want to scale, you need capital.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's
kind
for
of
sure, sir.
like
Yeah,
kind
I
of
have.
the investors are going to like,
Yeah.
it's not like kind of every investors are like that. Like, there would be investors. See, typically, I mean, they have put in money, so definitely they want to make 10x of what they have done. So they will be asking you to see. And why are they giving you capital? They are giving you the capital to take things up speed in a speedier manner.
Okay.
Okay. So if they don't give you capital, okay, obviously you are going to do this thing, but it will take 10 years. But if they
Yeah.
give you capital, you can do that in 1 year. So they expect you to do it in 1 year.
Okay.
So
Okay.
these things, like kind of, I mean, as a founder, you have to decide, like kind of, you'll have to ask with other founders the experience with those specific investors. What are these things and all those things? No, like how it has been working with them. And if you get a good feedback, you can go. If you are getting a very bad feedback, means that's again your call. Like whether you have to prioritize money over your, mental health. Okay,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
again another question that you have to ask. But these are like kind of decisions which you have to take as a person and as a founder. Like that's what I would uh, say. That's more of a kind of an emotional kind of thing added to it. And see, obviously, term sheet and everything would help in these things, but this all depends on the negotiations that you're doing before entering into a term sheet.
Okay.
So again, like kind of there, you have to have more clarity. And typically, like kind of early stage founders typically would be having an edge over, sorry, early stage investors would be having an edge over you because they're, they're trusting you at a very early stage. I mean, when you
Yeah.
have traction or anything. So
Okay.
typically, like kind of they are going to be a bit more like kind of interfering into your business and all those things because they want to see traction. And that is why companies who have traction would be able to raise funds much easier than the companies at an early stage because there the investor also needs them. Here the
Okay.
investor is dubious, but still they are quite confident with you. That's why they are putting the money.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Then we will take some more advice or a strategy, like people like you. Then we can have a better clarity, I guess.
Yeah,
So
sure.
that will do, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the
Thank you, Ram.
feedback. Yeah, and also, sir, can we get this presentation or something like that?
Yeah, yes. So that would be shared by Richard.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So if there is no one like kind of, so yeah, FTC Global Private Limited, yeah, you can ask me question. Please unmute yourself. Hello.
Hello. Hello,
Yeah.
sir.
Tell me. Yeah.
Sir, we are making some agreement with some incubator center in the
Mhm.
basis of equity, or
Mhm.
they are giving support us to develop our company, mentorship and investors and all these things. But we can't get better support from those peoples. Can we cancelize this agreement now?
Sorry, I didn't hear it fully.
We are making some agreement with incubator center
Okay.
with the basis of equity basis.
Okay.
They are agree for giving supports for the operational supports and investors and all these things. But now we can't get proper support as we like that. But how we can cancelize this agreement now?
I mean, that again, we'll have to go through the agreement. I mean, see, these are like kind of clauses specific to the agreement. There would be a termination clause. You'll have to read the termination clause. And in the case of termination, like what can be done is again something what you need to check. If you have already given them equity, I'm not sure like how you will be able to buy those equities back, because those clauses typically won't be present there. So whatever agreement you have signed with them, just revisit that and make sure like how you can terminate.
Okay, I will give you that agreement copy to you. And
You can contact with Dinesh and take an appointment and do that.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So guys, I think we'll wind up the session at 7:20 now. So we'll be having the second part of this session in the on next Friday, not this Friday, next Friday. So it's typically the Fridays we have the sessions. Only last time we had it postponed to today. So thank you guys once again. Thank you. So thank you for being supportive. Thank you for being interactive. Thank you for asking questions. So we'll see you guys again on next Friday. Bye. Good night.
Thank you.